My father was quite the braggart. When I was little, he would often tell tall tales about being able to control his soul and leave his body. That she'd describe, with great flair, what he saw and the thrilling things he did while out of body. Though his stories were usually entertaining, I mostly just thought he was full of it, just blowing smoke for fun. It wasn't until later, during my doctoral studies, that something actually happened to me, which made me start believing maybe my father's stories were true. Back when I was in middle school, my grandmother fell ill and was hospitalized. On weekends, my family would visit her in the hospital, chatting and keeping her company. One day, my father got called away on a sudden business trip. No one knew how long he'd be gone. So that weekend, my mother took my younger brother and me to the hospital alone. My father was absent. But then, on a Friday, school suddenly announced classes would be cancelled that afternoon. I got let out early, at noon, because my mother worked at a lunch shop in town and my brother was still at school. The house was empty except for me that afternoon. When I got home, though, I noticed someone was there. It was my father, but oddly, he was sitting in the living room, cross-legged, eyes closed, in a meditative pose. I wondered what he was doing. Curious, I called out to him, no response. I sat opposite him and stared for 5 minutes. Not a single movement. I figured maybe he'd fallen asleep. But the way he was sitting was so strange for sleeping. Raising my voice a bit, I told him, "If you're sleepy, go to your room to sleep. Don't nap like that." Seconds after I spoke, he suddenly snapped out of it, opening his eyes. He looked at me briefly, then stretched and acted like nothing unusual had happened. He turned on the TV and chatted with me as normal. The next morning, my mother and I went early to the hospital to visit my grandmother. She told us my father had actually come by the hospital the day before at noon. She said he stood at her bedside, looking worried. My mother thought maybe Grandma was dreaming or confused, so she didn't say much. But I remembered that at noon yesterday, my father had been sitting right there in our living room, apparently asleep and talking to me. He never left the house. I started wondering, could it be that while he was sitting with his eyes closed at home, his soul had actually left his body and gone to visit Grandma in the hospital? I was so intrigued that I asked my father about it later, but he only said he didn't remember. He brushed me off. Still, I thought if my father really could control his soul to leave his body, then maybe all those wild stories he told me before were true. He once told me about a time he was lying in bed and, as soon as his soul left his body, he saw a grey figure right in front of his eyes. He didn't know what it was, but instinctively felt it was terrifying. His gut told him it was dangerous. Fear took over. Then, in an instant, he snapped back into his body and woke up. When he opened his eyes, he saw a shadow pass through the doorway. Though these stories and that old hospital visit happened long ago, recalling them still sends chills down my spine. I get scared whenever I think about someone actually being able to control their soul like that. And I don't know if my father might be watching me now. From Tokyo, where I live. What if, oh no, what if he's spying on me exactly as in watching adult videos? Then I think, what if other people have these powers too? What if strangers are already using their souls to watch my every move in my own room? Just the thought gives me goosebumps. I feel like someone's staring at me right now. My original name was Xiang Tai, but for over 10 years now, everyone has called me Zhe. You're probably wondering why I changed my name to Zhe. Well, let me tell you my story. Back in high school, one day after class, I came home to find the house empty as usual. My parents were out. I went upstairs to my room, lay down on my bed, put on my headphones, and listened to my favorite music. Suddenly, I felt an unsettling sensation. It was like someone's gaze was fixed on me, coming from the window. I looked toward the window but only saw blue sky and a few drifting clouds. I thought to myself, maybe I've just been feeling paranoid lately, imagining someone watching me. No sooner had that thought crossed my mind than a man's voice sounded through my headphones. I focused, straining to understand what he was saying. Then, abruptly, the music stopped. I turned to look at the CD player beside me. It was working fine. The player was running fine, so I thought my headphones had broken. Just then, a man's voice came through the headphones, asking me, "Are you Xiong Tai?" I jumped. I pulled one earphone out and looked around. Nothing. Suddenly, the man's voice came through the headphones again, laughing as he said, "Don't doubt yourself. You heard right." A little nervous, I asked the empty air, "I'm Xiong Tai. Who are you? What do you want?" The man answered, "I'm Yongshu, your elementary school classmate." Yongshu was a transfer student who'd been in my class back in elementary school. He was extremely frail, and back then, I used to bully him for fun. He was scared of me, but we weren't classmates for long before he transferred away again. Yongshu said to me, "You remember how you used to bully me all the time? Right, I've come to find you. Scared now?" A little nervous, I replied, "Are you dead? Did you become a ghost?" He said he wasn't dead at all. He'd used some kind of method to do this. His purpose was to deliberately mess with me, to get revenge. Then he said he'd torment me until I went insane, never let me have peace for the rest of my life. Hearing this, I said angrily, "You gutless bastard, all you can do is use these cheap tricks. Pathetic." Yongshu shot back provocatively, "If you don't like it, come hit me. But first, you'd have to be able to." Back then, his provocation enraged me. I snapped back. I was going to do that anyway. Even if you didn't say it. If you've got guts, tell me where you are right now. Hearing my words, he suddenly burst out laughing. Then he said, "I'm in your room. If you don't believe me, go look at the note on your desk." I walked over to the desk and saw a note that read, "If you want to hit me, come on then. I'm just afraid you won't dare. You pathetic loser." After reading those words, my anger had maxed out. He continued to taunt me, saying, "Now you get it, Moreno." Right then, I was so furious I wanted to beat him to a pulp. I demanded angrily how he'd done it. He told me it was called astral projection. After saying that, he kept pushing my rage to the limit. He mocked me. Didn't I really want to beat him up? Did I want him to teach me the method? I shouted at the empty air, furious. "If you dare teach me, I dare go beat the hell out of you. Just wait there, and don't run." To my surprise, he actually taught me the method for astral projection quite readily, and even taunted me, saying he'd be right here waiting for me to come. You pathetic moron. Later, after I followed the method he taught me, I actually succeeded. My soul really left my body. I saw my own body lying on the floor, though I was a bit surprised. By that point I was already consumed by rage. My fury had clouded my head. I only wanted to teach him a lesson, so I searched the room for Yongshu, but I didn't see a single person. I went downstairs to look, didn't find him there either. When I came back upstairs to my room, I discovered that my body, which should have been lying on the floor, was now standing by the desk. I watched as my own body wrote on the note, "Go die, you pathetic loser. Now I'm Xiong Tai." Then I watched my stolen body standing by the desk, laughing at the empty air, saying, "Having such a strong body, this is great." Only then did I understand what had really happened. After that, I watched my own body run downstairs quickly, burst out the door, and run away. My body had been stolen by the guy in the headphones who claimed to be Yongshu. I won't talk about what happened after that. It was rough. Anyway, but I still made it through. Hearing all this, I think you should understand why I'm called Tetsuya now. I'm satisfied with my life now. I'm good minus looking on the outside. And I'm rich. But recently, a strange, muscular guy has started appearing frequently near where I live. So I might have to leave where I'm living now. Because that guy probably wants to take back what I have now, the life that already belonged to him. One summer, my family and I went to a nearby swimming pool. But I didn't know how to swim. So all I could do was sit on the side with my feet in the water. Maybe my parents felt sorry for me sitting alone at the pool's edge and wanted me to overcome my fear of water. So they kept splashing water at me. But getting water splashed in my face felt really uncomfortable. So I left the pool's edge unhappily. But for some reason, I suddenly fell into the deeper pool on the other side. I swallowed a lot of water. I felt like I was going to drown. What was strange was that even though I was drowning, I found myself sitting at the bottom of the pool, looking up at myself drowning. From the bottom I even saw someone jump in to save me. After I was pulled out of the pool, I stood to the side watching as a man performed CPR and mouth resuscitation on me. I felt incredibly surprised. Then a crowd gathered around, and being so young at the time, I felt like I was in big trouble. Just then, suddenly, I was sucked by some force back into my own body. Then I immediately opened my eyes. I saw the person who'd saved me right there in front of me, looking at me. Though I was a little startled and choking on the rush of water in my nose, I was more overwhelmed by the crowd around me. Startled, I scrambled to my feet, didn't even say thank you, and wobbled away from the scene as fast as I could. Ever since that accident, I discovered I could fly. According to the supernatural explanation, it's like my soul could leave my body. So when I started elementary school, if I wanted to watch TV at home, it'd leave my body at school, then fly back home to watch, and I did this more than a few times. A couple of times, I almost got caught by my mother, rushing back to school in a panic. Because of this habit, in elementary school, everyone said I was a dreamy kid, always spaced out. Back then, I thought flying was something anyone could do. But one night, as I was falling asleep, I suddenly heard a strange knocking sound, kang minus kang. I woke my brother, who shared the room, and asked if he heard it. He said no, probably just a figment of my sleepy mind. But the knocking kept going, and I judged from the sound's direction that it came from a park near our house. Curious, but knowing I couldn't sneak out past my sleeping parents without being caught, I decided to fly over to investigate. When I reached the park and entered the woods, I saw a woman in white, her face twisted into an extremely ferocious, almost ghostly expression. She stood in front of a tree trunk, clutching a hammer, furiously hammering nails into a straw all nailed to the tree. As she hammered, she muttered ceaselessly under her breath, drool slipping from the corners of her mouth. I didn't understand what any of it meant. It was my first time seeing anything like this, and I was utterly terrified. Frozen in place, I stared at her until she suddenly turned her head toward me. I was so scared, I immediately fled, flying as fast as I could back home, back under my quilt. Trembling, I kept thinking I might have been seen by that woman. Carrying that fear, I eventually fell asleep without realizing it. The next morning on the way to school, I told my brother what happened. He said people couldn't fly, it was just a nightmare. Hearing this, I realized flying was something everyone could do like me. But both of us grew curious about the dream, so we went to check out the park. We found many nails still driven into that tree's trunk. There was no straw doll now, but it was clear that if there had been one, the nails were positioned around the head and heart. What terrified us most was how many of the thick nails had been bent. It would take tremendous force to hammer nails so much that they bend. I felt disgusted and afraid. Though my brother chalked it up to coincidence, I stopped trying to fly after that and avoided that park entirely. Years later, our whole family moved to a neighboring city. Then, in high school, one holiday, a few friends from elementary came over. I told them about my experience. One friend who lived near the park told me about a crazy woman who used to live near our old home. Maybe it was the same woman. She was strange, and one day started standing by the park every afternoon at dismissal, staring at the faces of passing kids like she was searching for someone. Because of that, I had several scary eye contacts with her, her gaze murderous enough to terrify me during my walk home after school. One day, she suddenly attacked a classmate named UC who lived behind our house. After that, the police caught her, and she was sent to a hospital. Hearing this, my palms sweated with fear. UC had been in the class next door, and back in elementary school, people often said she and I looked very similar. All along, I thought it was just a dream, as my brother said. That woman was a figment of my childhood imagination. But now, I realized what happened that night was real. And worst of all, she not only saw me but was trying to find me too. Thankfully, I never went near that park again. I think if I hadn't deliberately avoided that park, maybe I would have been the one attacked. That was about my friend. I have another good friend who suddenly disappeared a few months ago, and no matter how I try, I can't get in touch with him at all. But just yesterday, I received a letter from him. Only after reading it did I finally understand what had happened. Below is what he wrote in the letter. How ye? It's been a long time. How have you been lately? First, let me say, I've gotten into trouble. I can only reach out to you this way. Briefly, and I hope you can find a way to help me. But the information I can give you is limited. Not because I don't want to tell you more, but because I can't. My memory about this whole thing is fragmented and sparse, so I can only share the parts I still remember. Here's what happened. A few months ago, I accidentally came across some information about astral projection. At that time, I was fascinated by it. I started researching related books and scoured the internet for others' experiences. During that time, I even communicated with several people who had undergone astral projection themselves. After a few exchanges, I grew curious about what the actual experience felt like. So I began trying some methods to induce an out-of-body experience. In that process, I failed countless times. Then, I rethought and refined some methods, gradually experimenting and practicing. And one night, I finally succeeded. That first experience of astral projection was unlike anything before. I felt my body grow light, as if I were floating in the air. My awareness was sharp and clear. But when I eagerly tried to open my eyes, I felt a pull-a force dragging me back. When I opened my eyes, I found myself lying in bed. At the time, I thought either that floating sensation was just an illusion, or I had failed. Still, that feeling was wonderful, so even a failure felt like a good gain. I devoted more time to practicing astral projection, and after that, I succeeded several more times. The experience matched what the books described: a light, floating body, and that sudden pull the moment I opened my eyes, then waking up in bed. Later, I thought maybe my excitement when opening my eyes caused my soul to snap back instantly, ending the experience. So I tried to stay calmer when opening my eyes, and my next experiences proved that idea correct. One time, after feeling that floating sensation, I calmed myself before opening my eyes, and when I did, I saw the ceiling right in front of me. I was thrilled to realize I really had succeeded. But though I had successfully astral projected, I felt as if my soul was trapped, unable to move freely. I tried to turn around but couldn't. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't move. I knew this probably just meant I needed more practice, so I kept at it. But every time after that, the same thing happened when I opened my eyes. The ceiling was right there, and any attempt to move would fail. I tried countless methods recommended by experienced people, but nothing worked. Then one night, after failing to move again and returning to my body, I immediately tried astral projecting again. That time was a little different. At first, it felt the same, but just as I was about to float, suddenly I felt a strong force pulling at me. Then, in the next instant, it was as if I was being yanked upward, like being thrown out by some powerful drag. Startled, I opened my eyes right away. From that vantage point, I was looking down from above, and below I saw my body lying in bed. It was a truly unforgettable experience. But even so, I still couldn't move my soul freely. I could only float there and watch myself. I was stuck, unable to act. Then, as I tried hard to start moving, I began to feel something strange starting from my feet. I felt my feet grow light, as if some invisible binding had come undone. Soon, I realized I could move my feet. That light feeling slowly traveled up my body to my hands, then my fingers, then my arms, and finally reaching my head. To confirm I could control my soul's movements, I tried turning myself over, and immediately, I turned to face the ceiling. I was overjoyed, finally able to control my soul with my mind. But that happiness was short-lived, because when I turned back toward my body lying in bed, I saw myself, their eyes wide open, wearing a faint smile and looking right back at myself. I was terrified by what had just happened. I didn't understand how it was possible, but I knew for certain it wasn't normal. So I just frantically tried to force myself back into my body, and in an instant, I was back inside. I knew because the view in front of me suddenly switched from looking down at myself to staring up at an empty ceiling. I spiraled into panic, thinking about how my empty shell of a body had suddenly opened its eyes and smiled while my soul was gone. I was truly afraid, and because of that, I never dared attempt astral projection again. But ever since that incident, my life began to fall into chaos. Like when I was thinking through decisions, I'd often hear another voice in my head, a strange man's voice. He would tell me what choice to make, or demand that I go somewhere and do something. I tried following the voice's instructions a few times, and the results actually brought me quite a few benefits. But then things got worse and worse. One time when I was scrolling through my phone on the train, the voice in my head appeared again. The voice told me to go drink, but since I don't drink, I didn't do it. Instead, I said in my mind, "Leave me alone. I don't drink." And then I started arguing with the voice in my head. Halfway through the argument, everything suddenly went black. I lost consciousness. It felt like I'd fallen asleep in an instant, and when I came to, I found myself sitting in an unfamiliar izakaya. My mouth reeked of alcohol. On the table sat a half-finished beer. I was shocked. I had no idea what was going on. I wondered how I'd ended up here. Just moments ago I'd lost consciousness on the train. How did I wake up here? I knew this was most likely connected to the voice in my head, and tied to that astral projection experience. So I started to feel afraid. I wondered if something had invaded my body. I knew the thought was absurd, laughable, even, but I couldn't think of any other explanation for what was happening. In the days that followed, the voice in my head stopped appearing. Instead, the sudden blackouts, the loss of consciousness, started happening more and more frequently. I was terrified by this, though it felt like just closing my eyes and opening them again in an instant. In reality, time had passed in the real world. Later, things got even worse. The periods when I lost consciousness grew longer and longer, from just a few minutes, gradually stretching to several hours, then to several days. And what frightened me most was that I was completely powerless against it. I didn't know how to control it or fight back. I could only let it happen. Eventually, because of this, my memory became fragmented. Even when I was conscious, I couldn't figure out what day it was, though my life had become chaotic. I knew that during the times I lost consciousness, another soul, another consciousness was controlling my body, living as me, using my identity. I was terrified, and as I write this letter, it's been more than 5 months since I was last awake. I have absolutely no memory of what I did during those 5 months. All I know is that right now, I'm in a completely unfamiliar place. I don't know how long I can stay conscious. I don't know when the other soul hiding inside my body will seize control again. So all I can do is hurry and roughly write down my situation in this letter while I'm still awake. Then, without being discovered, I'm sending it to you by mail to ask for help. Because you're my best friend. You're the only one I can turn to. So when you see this letter, please, you have to help me. The place where I am right now is the return address on the envelope. If you can, find a way to bring me back, and then find someone with spiritual abilities to help me. Please. That was the content of the letter she sent me. After her mother saw it, she called her, but she said it was just a joke, a prank. Then, after some time passed, when her mother called again, the phone number had suddenly been disconnected because they couldn't reach her at all.